Hey peeps, DJMK here. Welcome to another video. I never thought that I would have to be doing this tribute so soon. And again, none of us do. But here we are. So, Chadwick Boseman, actor we all knew and loved for the past 10, 16 years, has passed away yesterday. He has had a huge impact in my life, and especially how I express myself. And this is not an easy video for me, as I have been thinking about a few of his movies actually this week and how much I really wanted to rewatch Black Panther again. And to find out that he's gone, it's just a profound shock. I actually dug through one of my drawers and I actually found this. I dressed up as Black Panther, as T'Challa, during Halloween 2 years ago. And I watched that movie in theaters 5 or 6 times. I still have the popcorn bucket from the opening day. That's how much I love this movie. I mean, I am going to get to more of that in a moment. But I also really wanted to talk about the ways that he has impacted my life, as well as his career, because his career is really amazing. So, Chadwick Boseman was an alum at Howard, along with Kamala Harris. And one of his mentors was Felicia Rashad, because she taught there around that period, and he actually graduated with a degree, the Bachelor's of Fine Arts in degree in directing. So it goes to show that he has the experience. And when he wanted to go to acting school, Rashad, as well as Denzel Washington, actually paid his way toward being an actor. And that goes to show about how much community, how much performing really meant to him. And he made it his point to emphasize this everywhere that he went. He made it a point to talk about how much being young and black was very important, especially in Hollywood, because if you look at the history, if you look at the history, especially a lot of time, like African American and African British actors have gone through so many challenges in the industry. Black creatives in general have gone through so many challenges in this industry. And Chadwick Boseman did so much to dismantle all of those things through the actions that he had taken, not only on the screen, but off. there was a Sirius XM interview. I actually tweeted about it. If you want to take a look at it, just feel free to go to my Twitter at DJMK for life, where he even talks about two kids who had terminal cancer that he was writing to. That they talk about like how important this movie was to them, how much this movie meant to them, and they were hanging on to be able to see it. Sadly, they were not able to. And it made him realize how much of a big deal this movie truly was. Little did we also know, at the time that interview was done, it was 2018. In 2018, he was 2 years into his cancer treatment. So, that interview turned out meaning in more ways than one. But let's not just celebrate the fact that he was able to do so much work, especially with the challenge of his diagnosis and how he had to handle it privately. But also more so, the things he did for his community during that period. He donated towards a theater program in Harlem. He did a commencement speech in Harvard years later. He portrayed so many big historical figures like Thurgood Marshall, Jackie Robinson, James Brown. That's just to name a few. Everything that he did was to show the importance of dignity and Black excellence. And, I mean, when you really think about it, he hadn't been in the business for long, but he had done so much. He's done so much in the industry. Like, he really has. Let me just show you what he has done. So, his debut was in the soap opera All My Children in 2003, where he played a recurring role. Then he was mainly doing guest roles for about 5 years in Law & Order, CSI New York, ER, Cold Case, and then he had a regular role, 9 episodes in Lincoln Heights. I've watched Lincoln Heights, and yeah, I totally forgot he was in it, unfortunately. Thankfully, again, Lincoln Heights, thankfully, is available for streaming, so if you want to check it out, check out the episodes that he was in, go ahead and do so. I recommend you do. Because Lincoln Heights, that show in and of itself was pretty big at the time. It was on Freeform. Back then it was known as ABC Family. Was it Fox Family? Maybe it was ABC. I think it was ABC Family at the time. Sorry. And then he was on Lie to Me, 13 episodes of Persons Unknown, and of course, it really blew up around 2010 and 2011. And then Saturday Night Live, Black Jeopardy. That was a pretty awesome. So for most of between 2011 and 2018, it was mainly film at that point. So his film debut was The Express, the Ernie Davis story, followed by The Kill Hole. And then his first major role, I believe, I don't know about The Express or The Kill Hole, but the first major role that most of us found out about him was 42. When he played Jackie Robinson beside Nicole Beharie. And then there was Draft Day, Get On Up, I am familiar with very well. That's another movie I absolutely recommend. Then there was the infamous Gods of Egypt, where he played Thoth. And then the place where he really took off was Captain America Civil War. And that was where most of us really first noticed him as an actor, myself included. I described it in my YouTube video, Real Talk, What Black Panther Means to Me. That video is an hour long. It's mainly, my views went very, very technical looking back on it, so it's probably not the best tribute that I have, but I think the first maybe 15 minutes are apt. So I'm going to go ahead and show you this. I hope YouTube doesn't copyright strike my own video, let alone something that I'm doing as a tribute to somebody that has impacted my nerdy life. But I hope you still at least enjoy it. So I will comment in between a little bit as often as possible as well. Also, my audio's terrible, so forgive me. Oops. And Windows frozen.
Hey peeps,
Oh, there we go.
MK here, and welcome to another live stream. A game will be coming over later. We'll be continuing with the Lady's Choice, and maybe as well as the Vainglory 5v5 video that I've been promising you the past few days. But today I decided to do a vlog, a live Q&A, live vlog. So, thankful. Thankfully, if you've not seen the movie yet, rest assured there will be no spoilers whatsoever. So I'm just gonna be going to talk about like what I just took away from this movie.
And by the way, shout out to Grim Toadstool. He actually stopped by the stream, stopped by Twitch during the stream, so I was able to answer a few more specific questions as well about some MCU films that I recommend during this period. So I think that list is still pretty relevant even now. I think I would also add Ant-Man and the Wasp to this. So that's my little update to it, and of course, Infinity War. So yeah, a couple updates to that list, but for the most part, it's still pretty much the same. Come on. I know you can do it.
I've been tweeting a little bit last night and somewhat this morning, but I went to the opening fan event last night with a friend at 6 p.m. showing, and I had a really amazing time. But I mean, I know there's been like loads of articles, like the New York Times, the Washington Post, etc., that have been talking about impacts. But I mean, it's one thing to go at it from a reporter's perspective, but another to go from a more personal perspective. So I feel like it's very important that I make this video to do this. The recording will be posted on Twitch as well, but it's going to be permanently on my YouTube channel. So for those who have been following me through both mediums, thank you very much for that.
And that is still the same. So Twitch is it's still on a temporary basis, but unless I basically download the video and then upload it there, it pretty much gets deleted after 14 days. Like I think after 2 weeks. Longer if you're a partner or affiliate. So that's still pretty much the same. So likewise, there's gonna be a permanent archive of this on YouTube, but a temporary one on Twitch. Though I might find some way to make it permanent on Twitch as well, just in case you're curious.
So, yeah, this is my perspective on what Black Panther means to me. So, my parents are immigrants, from Cameroon to be more specific, and so I came over here. Well, I was born over here, but anyway, in the U.S. I was born over here in the U.S. And um, and one of my greatest escapes I love to go to was through video games and television and books. And that was my greatest expression when it came to being myself, was through the literary medium. I wrote stories, I wrote poems, you name it, I've probably done it.
I haven't been as creative recently. Unfortunately, I've just been struggling with writing, but I'm hoping to get back into it.
I've even done martial arts. Up to 13 years I've done that. And and the hardest part, especially being a nerd in America, or at least more so in 90s America, is that they kind of look upon you as being some sort of antisocial or uber detached from the real world kind of thing, and and I lived kind of the opposite of that mentality. I always was very talkative. I always was very social. But then, I think I kind of realized this in a subtle manner. Unlike most people that may talk about this, I never really had an upfront experience of, or at least like the more blatant experience of racism until I became more aware of the systemic problems that surrounded it. And I think I was already very aware on a subconscious level. If the characters were able to be customized, I always customized them closer to my color.
And that's the blessing about RPGs, that you can easily do that. And I think back then as well, looking back on it, I also was kind of suppressing experiences that I actually did have. Because looking back on it, the thing that I experienced the most growing up was shopping while black, which is basically the phenomenon where a shopkeeper or somebody who runs a business basically kind of hovers over you a lot more under the suspicion that you would be stealing or something. Like that one, I did not remember that until this year, actually. When I thought about when I've like the last time I went to the mall, and then the back, like I was getting some stuff from Lush, that bubble bomb, that bath bomb store, and then there's this one shop that used to be where the Body Shop is now, that my mom and I used to go to. It was pretty high end. It was called Cachet. Yeah, I'm not ashamed to say that now, because I think Cachet has long since shut down, or is now pretty much considered high street, that it's very hard to access. But the employees, they just made it a point that we were not welcome there. And it's one thing to do it with an adult, but it's another thing entirely to do it with a child. I was in the single digits back then. So the fact that I suppressed that for years, it goes to show how much this affected me. And the next part I'm going to say as well, it still applies, and then this is often the excuse a lot of nerds to this day still kind of pull, where it's like, well, that's what you're supposed to do with the movie. Of course you're supposed to pretend to put yourself in there. That's what the character's supposed to do. No, it's not. Unless it's like an action movie or a story where it's obviously supposed to put yourself into it. That's not what it's supposed to do. That's really not what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to show a character and how you relate to it. And especially in America, in this case, appearance does matter, but especially representation does matter. And at the time, especially growing up, I mean, we had our representations. We had Teresa and Barbie. We had the one black character in various superhero teams or animated shows, but they often were side characters. They were never the main characters or comic relief. So it was basically another one of those take what you can get kind of things. And again, in particular, Halle Berry's Oscar win for Best Actress, which to this day she is still the only African American to do so. That impact was totally lost on people that day. I think Halle Berry was the only one who saw the impact that day. It'd be kind of rewind to observe that. But yeah, I observed that too. Scholars observed that. There was even like a paper about how Halle Berry and Denzel Washington's Oscar wins that year in the 75th Oscars, etc. Back then, it was still take what you could get. 2010 was take what you can get as well. And Marvel, ironically, was especially infamous for this. Back in the day. And 2018, I was thinking, after Black Panther, I was divorcing from Marvel Media. 2 years later, and I'm still watching Marvel material. Can you believe it? Albeit the old stuff, but I'm still checking out Marvel material. So, Black Panther was a big turning point for me. So, long story short, fans can work hard, but but working that hard shouldn't be a requirement. That's why Black Panther was so important. So I'm going to continue with the video. Also, side note, I miss those braids so much. Like, I felt like a badass wearing them.
Characters were able to be customized. I always customized them closer to my color. I'd write stories where I often assumed that the default was me. And whenever I watched a movie, I'd often have to try really hard to see myself in it. And of course, as I grew up, the more I learned, the more I talked about it, it just became harder to go that way, even with my big imagination, as much as I have it. And with a loving, even though I have a loving heart, I love these people to pieces. I really enjoy, I really like all the work these people have done and all these other things done, but I've always been wanting for something more. I've been wanting to see myself, if not as an actress, then as a character, at bare minimum. And especially something beyond the slavery narrative, because I don't have because my genetics don't have that history at all, and I couldn't associate myself with that history at all, because
Ooh.
the most history I have in America is just being born here. That's something you can't detach, even if you're just a transplant.
And that is still the case. That is still the case even now. My biggest dream is still to have characters that represent my experience, African immigrant experience, and first, second gen people. They are believe it or not, they are the least covered in American media. The only one that I can really think of is a fictional interpretation, like Coming to America. Very famous narrative. Like, it's one of my family's favorite movies, and I'm not exaggerating. Everybody in this household has either watched Coming to America or is a massive fan of Coming to America. But even that one, it's very much in a comedic bent, and the character returns to Zamunda in the end with an American bride. So, not really a true American story right there. But yeah, I still, that is still a dream. I have been thinking of getting back into acting, stage acting, as soon as this is over. And I think something skipped, so I'm going to go back a little bit.
More. I've been wanting to see myself, if not as an actress, then as a character, at bare minimum.
And I also had another idea for character. There is a character in Black Panther that I really, really wanted to play. The probability is super low now with the passing of Chadwick Boseman, and that is Princess Battle Royale. I kind of wanted to have her as the contrast to as the contrast to Eric Killmonger in the MCU, because Princess Battle Royale is also Wakandan diaspora, but unlike Killmonger, she has had positive ideologies of Wakanda, but not in a vengeful circumstance. Probably because she also was younger too when it happened, so it kind of helps in that respect. So she wants to go back to kind of continue the duty that her parents passed away doing. Because I believe in like the comics continuity, she was she was the daughter of two war dogs that got killed off during Ulysses Claw's attack, and she just happened to be back in America when this happened with her aunt, who was also a war dog and a Wakandan. Her parents went back to do some things in Wakanda. They had every intention to go back and get their daughter, but then they were killed off before they could do so. So her aunt and I think her grandmother basically raised her up in America, telling her stories about Wakanda, and one day going back and taking her parents' place. And I kind of felt like maybe like Black Panther 2 or Black Panther 3 even could even cover a story like that where she goes back. But now 2 is even under question. I know this is a terrible time to talk about film continuity. But Black Panther 2 was not filmed. It was supposed to film in 2021. And supposedly the story was going to be about this time passing on the torch to Shuri, since T'Challa was going to focus more on ruling the country. I mean, they may still do that anyway, albeit for a different reason, but that's how much of an impact he had on the role. Sorry, I know this video is taking forever. I just can't remember the placement of where I described the impact of the film. So I think it's around 15 minutes in, but I don't want to skip forward too much because like I feel like the beginning is still very important. Also, my face looks really hilarious here. Sorry. Oh my gosh, not now.
Something beyond the slavery narrative, because I don't have because my genetics don't have that history at all, and I couldn't associate myself with that history at all, because the most history I have in America is just being born here. But I'm aware that that's something you can't detach, even if you're just a transplant. You can't detach the negative energy.
That's still true. That is still true.
So, and I think I also eventually got affected by all the negative messages that were popping up in the media, whether it was just getting disapproved for that one role in theater, or just not getting that rousing applause that most of the people were getting when it came to their work. And there was even at one point where Maho Kunoichi would have been dropped easily within the very first year. Even though I had an audience at that radio show, I actually almost dropped it, because all the negativity of being a woman, being of African descent, being a combination of those two, being a geek and a nerd, it just became too much to carry, and I almost dropped it. But it took a community of like-minded people, and along with the reporter John Quinones, the one from ABC's What Will You Do?
I still owe him to this day.
And so I can't give up that easily, because I've gotten so many naysayers. So I continued on for its run for the entirety of my college time, and I'm right now trying to continue on that time via Mixlr.
Still trying.
I'm still sitting up for that. Link is in the description of my YouTube channel, by the way, if you want to donate. I only need $20 to get it running. That's all.
That is optional.
I'm not asking much. If I get the 20, that's it. I will be good for the next 3 months of running without trouble. But anyway, getting back to Black Panther a little bit. So, fast forward to now. When I first saw Black Panther in Civil War, Chadwick Boseman really stood out to me in a way. It was a godsend. the timing he came in. He stood out in the way he performed in Civil War. And, I mean, to be honest, at first when I saw Civil War, I was thinking, like, when they did the Team Iron Man and Team Cap thing, I just went out and said, like, hey, Team Black Panther. But little did I know when I walked away from that movie, that's precisely the stance I took at the end. Is that even though Captain America and Iron Man have their own interesting argument, in the end, I sided with Black Panther all the way. He went through an arc of his own. He ended up in the middle of something that he had no idea what he was getting into, but as a royal and as a hero, he had a duty to protect the people he served. And that's precisely what he did.
And this was the scene that basically cemented it for me. Now I hope I don't get copyright strikes for this, because this is a tribute. But this was the scene that basically cemented my fandom for Chadwick Boseman. If I can get it going. And it's frozen. I don't know what it is about OBS, and then it just making my computer overreact, but it just this is why I need a new computer. I really need a new computer because it's ruining my tribute. But long story short, if I can't get the clip working, it's basically the scene at the end of Civil War, well, just before the credits of Civil War, where T'Challa confronts Helmut Zemo about how he was basically easily able to drive the Avengers apart. And it was like he almost had the sick pride of being able to get away with it. But T'Challa, he had every reason to be vengeful, but he doesn't fall for that darkness. And especially when it got to the point where Zemo was about to take himself out, and then T'Challa managed to stop him and say, "The people aren't done with you yet." Damn! That line still that line still hits. That line still hits. With that face and that gaze, it just like it spoke so like that one ending still spoke so much. It spoke so much. I mean, it told you 3 things. Number 1, Black Panther was bulletproof. That's something that, like, at the time, especially if the movie was coming out, a lot of gun violence is happening. Whether it was in the streets or by police. And having a bulletproof character was a huge symbolic moment right there. Number 2, Black Panther was royalty. Like, I mean, very much of the characters in the movie, like the royalty felt almost like as if like at first like people were just looking at royalty as like kind of pseudo title because Wakanda had the front of being a small country with its specialty in textiles. Little they know they were hiding a much bigger interior, and the territory is much bigger than what they presented. They just fell for the stereotype. And third, T'Challa, and in turn, Chadwick Boseman himself, was going to be the biggest presence the MCU has ever experienced. And that scene practically clinched it. Oh my god. Oh man. Now let's see if I can get to the point where
duty to protect the people he served. And that's precisely what he did. And bringing proper justice. Obviously, he started with a vendetta, but he knew in the end that was unproductive. So he took the higher road. Excuse me.
I was also going through a bit of a digestive issue at the time. Also, I was going through a bit myself, a health issue at the time that I was recording this video. It got pretty extreme within the next year, but thankfully from that point onward, it stopped. So, to this day, I don't know what was happening then. But it goes to show that, especially with this, you definitely need to take care of yourself as much as possible.
He changed not only as a leader, but as a person. And so this movie covers just after that moment when he establishes himself as a person and as a ruler. Getting that throne and finding out what it means to be a leader. Which is something that not many other superheroes can easily say. The closest I could really think of is probably Hagar from... I forgot the fighting game he's from, but Hagar from one of the fighting games. I forgot which one. It's not Street Fighter, I know that for sure. Hagar being a mayor of California, and Sailor Moon.
Hagar's from Final Fight. That's why I couldn't remember. That's why I couldn't remember, because I've actually never played Final Fight. So it's a pretty old Capcom game. So that's why I couldn't remember it. The only reference to Hagar that I knew was from Death Battle when he fought against Zangief from Street Fighter, and Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. So that's why I couldn't remember him.
Princess of the Moon. And then later on, she becomes the Queen of the Earth and the Moon for the Silver Millennium. That's really the closest we get in terms of having leaders as superheroes. I mean, there's probably tons more that I'm not thinking of right now. It's 1 p.m. I'm getting up to that point. I'm hungry. But anyway, I mean, if you have any others that you could list off, feel free to put it in the messages portion. My chat's open right now.
Thankfully, it's going up now with like more characters like I thought of Merlin and King Arthur and She-Ra and Sophia the First and obviously like characters like Tiana and several others that I can easily think of now. But at the time I was still kind of fried from the premiere that day, so of course I wouldn't think of that.
If you remember any other leaders that... Oh! Hey, Grim Toadstool! It's nice to see you again. But yeah, so... But really, long story short, very few superheroes you could list off as having a literal leadership position and maintaining superpowers at the same time. And especially when it comes to the history that this character has. I'm trying not to get into spoilers. It's very hard to. But the plots that they cover in this movie, it's very relevant to today's situation when it comes to identity.
And sadly, it still is. Well, happily it still is, but also sadly it still is.
Strength, and also our definition of ourselves. So, when I saw all those actors and actresses up in this movie, giving it their all, doing the best performances possible, and all of the culture is represented in that movie, I was already proud of who I am before I watched this movie, but I walked away even more proud of who I am.
And that part is still true. I mean, in the mix of recording earlier, I kind of said like before I wasn't really that proud. Now I was. That's the thing. It's very variable. Like some days I do feel proud. Other days I still feel weighed down. For the most part, I am proud of who I am, and that still stands. That Black Panther just showed it even more. I know Chadwick Boseman did a lot more than Black Panther, but Black Panther in particular, the reason why that one was so impactful is because, I mean, because I'm going to mention again, historical narratives were basically a given. Like, that was going to be our natural medium of where we were going to succeed, because a lot of our lives here in the US especially, still, also in Britain as well. I mean, why else are our British stars coming over here, other than the fact that, like, there's way more opportunities here for them to shine compared to us ourselves here and likewise abroad. Because of all the historical narratives that we do over here. And even just the driving force of our lives is to just show excellence in whatever realm that we are in. And for the longest while, especially in fiction, that seemed to be all there is, to be like 10 steps ahead of where we already are, to be the best that we can be, number one. Yeah, I mean, we showed that every single, yeah, and then, yeah, Black Flash, you got it right. It's just as bad as Kobe Bryant. In fact, it's crazy. It's the same year as this. It's too. I don't have any tears left to cry. I mean, you may seem like as if I don't care, but I really do. It's like I cried so much in the beginning of the year that I don't have any energy to cry anymore. Like, that's how much this has affected me. It's like now it's more of frustration and exhaustion that I'm experiencing than traditional grief. I mean, then again, the Cooper Ross scale is not really adequate when it comes to this. Because it doesn't really cover exceptional circumstances, like the fact that we're in a pandemic right now. And I don't care if it gets demonetized. I'm not getting paid for this anyway. So, yeah. So historical narratives up until this point was pretty much a given in Black media, and for the longest while, it felt like it's all we were going to be known for, or the negative stereotypes we often got cast as. The Man, Me, the Jezebel, the Buck. There's a lot of literature on that, which I'm not going to get into here. So Black Panther had a huge shockwave when it came to fiction, especially, because then it goes to show that we could play dignified characters in fiction, we could play a superhero, we could play a royal, we could have all those things coexist. And he did that. All the cast members did that, but he especially did that.
Seeing Chadwick Boseman, Lupita Nyong'o, Danny Gurira, Daniel Kaluuya, Michael B. Jordan, and even Martin Freeman and Andy Serkis. They gave it their all in this movie, and so Forrest Whitaker and Angela Bassett, can't forget those people too.
I also forgot to shout out John Connie. John Connie practically made the movie the way it is too. Like, he taught Chadwick Boseman Kosa. And also the reason why Wakanda switched locations from West Africa to East Africa, like Southeast Africa. So, shout out to John Connie as well.
Just all those people. They gave it their all in this movie, and I feel happy and proud that I share the same culture as them, that I share that lineage. And I feel proud that I finally in such a way that I could share this feeling with. I have people that could share it with. I have something that I can refer people to if anybody wants to get to know me or get to know who I am, or a superhero that I could look up to. Black Panther, this is it. This movie is it. And I feel happy this exists. And I'm thinking to myself, if this happened back when I was a teenager or back when I was a child, I would be having an entirely different conversation right now. I would be talking about the excitement of all these different superheroes that exist right now. We have Wonder Woman last year. This year we have Black Panther, and later on Captain Marvel. And obviously we have several others that desperately need the attention. That I'm sorry, I'm still in the excitement of the moment. But long story short, I'm grateful that I got this now. I'm grateful that I have this experience now. Like the LGBT community with Andrew Repon and Rick Riordan, and women with Wonder Woman, and now with the Dora Milaje, and now with Black Panther, and the African diaspora, and the motherland. This means a lot, believe it or not. This means a lot to people. We've had a lot of black leads, but I mean, in terms of a movie like this, we've had nothing like this. And to all those producers who were willing to give this movie a chance at being made, thank you. To Ryan Coogler, who has been a fellow nerd, one moment dreaming about it 10 years ago when Iron Man first came out, to making the same vision possible now for not only people of color but for all of us. Thank you. To Chadwick Boseman, to Lupita Nyong'o, to Dene Guerrera, to any of those people involved in the film, acting, producing, otherwise. Thank you. I'm eternally grateful. You've done so much for us as nerds, as geeks, whether you start off with Marvel or something else. I'm grateful. We're all grateful that this exists. You guys are superheroes in every respect. And I'll be eternally grateful for that. I mean, you brought my dreams to life again. I mean, I've had it for a long time. I mean, being an artist, an actor, a gamer, live streaming this right now. But watching the movie last night made me realize that those dreams were valid and real. And I'm eternally grateful for that. Thank you.
And that's still the case even now. Chadwick Boseman, he totally did that. I just really wanted to go to a convention or Comic-Con or something. I just really wanted to say thank you to him. And now I think I never will. I never will have that chance. I never will. I mean, I'm glad that I got it on video. At least. I'm glad that I got it on video at least, but it's not the same. I know it's not the same. I really want to tell the people that I've grown up watching, how much they really meant to me. So please just, like, my fellow otakus, my fellow weebs, my fellow geeks, my fellow nerds, please just make sure you hug your family, hug your friends, message them, do your checkups, tell people how much you love them, because you never know. You never know what they're going through. You never know what they're going through, and your comment could practically save their day. We are fighting battles that we don't know. Like, we don't know. We didn't know about his cancer. Like, he kept that hidden. I think not only for privacy's sake, but also just to make sure that us, his fans, were not too affected. Yeah, so earlier I actually played my Black Panther review. It's super rough. My audio was terrible at the time. I didn't have this mic back then. But yeah, Chadwick Boseman, like, basically impacted what it meant for me to be a nerd. Like, just everybody in that Black Panther cast impacted what it meant to be a nerd. So that's the link in the description in case you're, like, the link in Twitch in case you're curious about that video. It's an hour long. My audio is terrible. There's no spoilers for that for that video, though I do have spoilers in the Mixler review if you want to listen to that instead. It's a little bit better. But yeah, long story short, he like, Chadwick Boseman basically impacted movie history. We didn't even know the extent until now. Without Boseman, I think, and as well as the several people who have paved before, let's not deny the people who have paved the path before him, like Halle Berry, Denzel Washington, Samuel L. Jackson, Hattie McDaniel, Sidney Poitier. We can't deny all those predecessors who basically cracked that ceiling for us, so that Chadwick Boseman could fly onto our screens. I mean, but most of them made leaps in terms of history. Chadwick Boseman made leaps in terms of fiction. Because up until this point, in fiction, we were basically limited to gangsters or gangsters, comedy relief, or side characters just to fill in a quota. Like, that's where, like, tokenism comes from. And he broke that. And it's also kind of poetic that, as well, that he passed away during Jackie Robinson Day and the anniversary of the March on Washington. Usually, Jackie Robinson Day is celebrated in April, but because of the pandemic, the Major League Baseball Association decided to move it forward to August 28th to honor the March on Washington. And funnily enough, Chadwick Boseman, ironically, just happened to be at that time. And like I said earlier, he talked about the impact. He talked about the impact every single chance that he would get. Here is when the ensemble accepted the award from the Screen Actors Guild for Black Panther. I might be able to get part of the speech. For that because it's pretty long.
Chadwick Boseman, who played the Black Panther, talked about their $1 billion superhero box office hit.
To be young, gifted, and black, we all know what it's like to be told that there is not a place for you to be featured. We knew that we had something special that we wanted to give the world, that we could be full human beings.
Many of the winners highlighted.
Yeah, so that only got a portion of it. There is a full one in here, but especially the young, gifted, and black portion, that is so true. There are so many times, whether it's in arts or any other department, where they're told that there's just no place for you. And borrowing something from something new, there is something called the black tax, essentially, where basically a lot of performers like this, you basically had no choice but to work 10 times harder to stay in the game. That you had to work that much harder to stay in the game. And Chadwick Boseman, through his production work and through his acting work, came to show that that's basically how it shouldn't have to be this way for anybody. I mean, the only hard work that you need to do is to prove that you can actually do that job, that you can actually pull it off. That's all you need to focus on. Not being exceptional for whatever characteristic that you have. So, Chadwick Boseman has two posthumous productions that will be coming out within the next year or two. Don't know about when this one's going to be happening. But this one, it's another August Wilson adaptation, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which stars Viola Davis and Boseman. And it is about jazz musician Ma Rainey. And this was about one performance she had in the 1920s. And the music is by Branford Marsalis, the son of the jazz great Wynton Marsalis, and it's going to release onto Netflix. It unfortunately does not say when it's going to happen, but it looks really interesting. So that filming commenced in July of 2019 and wrapped a little over a month later. And then the other one that was recently announced was What If, which is basically one of those hypothetical series about what if certain events from the MCU didn't happen or they happened in a very different way. And Chadwick Boseman voice acted, he reprised his role as T'Challa, but then he also voice acted as Star-Lord in What If. So these are two projects that he did before he passed away. I mean, the fact that he was this prolific around his diagnosis, that's 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, that's 10 projects. 10 projects that he did. 12 if you include the TV shows. During those 4 years that he was diagnosed. That's incredible. Honestly, that's incredible. Like, regardless of what you think of him or whether or not you've seen this material, you can't deny how prolific he was back then. And honestly, it's obvious that there was so much more that he had to give. There was so much more that he had to give. So, Message from the King and The Five Bloods would be the easiest to access if you happen to have a Netflix subscription because they are Netflix films. And then Message from the King was mainly to maintain the accent that he developed for Captain America Civil War. So it was that, but I think also it was it was also, like, when you really watch the story of that film, it's also a great outlet of all the frustration and all the hypocrisy that the Africans in the diaspora and America have experienced all these past few years. And I admit, I am a theology major. I am very spiritual. But one of the hardest things I guess I had to do, one of the things I've had to grapple with is the concept of an afterlife. Like, what would that look like? In some ways, I just hope there is one. And hope especially that there is one where we can see each other again. And I hope especially it is in the way that T'Challa describes it in this scene from Civil War. And it's one that's been getting retweeted in several places.
In my culture, death is not the end. It's more of a stepping off point. You reach out with both hands and Bast and Sekhmet. They lead you into the green veldt where you can run forever.
That sounds very peaceful.
And also that other thing, one comedic channel that I follow, the ceremony that they did last night was in tribute to Bast and Sekhmet. So that's even more profound. Like, it was one of the sacred days of Sekhmet. So, Chadwick Boseman, you will be missed significantly. I know there was so much more that you wanted to do. But at the same time, though, you have done a lot for us. So, I'm going to say thank you. And rest now. And we'll pick up where you left off. Thank you so much for watching this. Feel free to share your memories down below. May your heart be your guiding key. And Wakanda forever.